freedom comes at a cost. I paid mine in the sweltering jungles of Vietnam, and for decades, I've lived on the dividends, the quiet of dawn, the scent of wet cedar, and the solid ground beneath my boots. My name is Jack Harlan, and this 40-acre slice of North Carolina soil has been my sanctuary since my father bought it in 1973, the year I returned home haunted by more shadows than I could carry. It's where I raised my son, where my grandson Tommy now plays with my old retriever Max, and where I thought I'd spend my days in peace. But peace, it turns out, is a fragile thing when someone decides your home is just a square on their map. Driving my beat-up Chevy up the gravel road that afternoon, I was ready for a glass of iced tea and the sight of Tommy chasing Max around the oak my father and I planted 50 years ago. But as I rounded the southern edge of my property, my foot eased off the gas. A glinting metal fence cut through my trees like a fresh scar, and a sign stapled to a post screamed in red letters. Pine Hollow Community, private property, trespassers will be prosecuted. My blood didn't boil, it froze. This wasn't just land. This was my son's first bike ride, my father's legacy, my home. I parked, grabbed a wrench, and tore the sign down with a satisfying clank. It landed in my truck bed like a trophy, and I drove straight to the Pine Hollow HOA office, a sterile building reeking of lemon polish and arrogance. I slammed the sign on the reception desk, startling a young clerk. "I need to talk to whoever's behind this," I said, my voice steady as stone. Out came Margaret Tate, all sharp smiles and calculated charm, with her husband, Edward, trailing like a shadow. "Mr. Harlan," she purred, "what a pleasant surprise." I cut through her act. "Nice fence you put on my land." Her smile didn't waver. "Just a necessary boundary update, per the 2020 redistricting." I held up a hand. "I've got deeds from '73, real paper, not your clip art nonsense." Margaret's tone turned patronizing. "Land integration doesn't need consent, Mr. Harlan. It was voted on by the community." I snorted. "You mean that beige empire you built a decade ago?" Her eyes narrowed. "Have a nice day, Mr. Harlan." I walked out, knowing the first shot had been fired. The next morning, as I sipped coffee on my porch watching Tommy and Max play, a gray SUV with the Pine Hollow logo roared up, followed by a sheriff's cruiser. A man in a crisp polo, clipboard in hand, stepped out, radiating unearned authority. Deputy Carter, a weary kid no older than 30, followed reluctantly. "Identify yourself," Polo shirt barked. I stayed in my rocking chair. "I live here. You explain why you're blocking my driveway." Deputy Carter spoke up. "We got a trespassing complaint on HOA land." I met his eyes. "This land's been mine since Nixon." "You're standing on my property, Deputy." He shifted, uneasy. "Until this is sorted legally," I cut him off. "It was sorted in '73. I stood, guiding Tommy inside. "We're done here." The attacks escalated. At the feed store, old friends like Sam avoided my gaze. A typed note appeared in my mailbox. "He's making this harder than it needs to be. Kids wander. Dogs get sick. Move on before something breaks." My hand stayed steady, but my heart splintered. They'd threatened Tommy. They'd threatened Max. Then the well pump went silent. Inside the pump house, the power line wasn't frayed, it was sliced clean. A message: "We control your life." That night, an encrypted email from JC pinged my inbox. "I know what they're doing. It's bigger than a fence. Meet me at the Blue Ridge Diner, Highway 54, noon. Come alone." The next day, I sat in a vinyl booth, coffee untouched. A nervous man in his 30s slid in James Clark, a tech guy from the HOA office. "It's fraud," he whispered, sliding me a USB drive. "Margaret and Edward are silent partners in a Charlotte firm. Your land is the only access for a $100 million resort. They faked the maps to steal it." I gripped the drive, heavier than a grenade. This was war. The assaults grew darker. A forged letter from Tommy's school claimed his residency was invalid, terrifying him. I reassured him, but my fury burned white hot. Then came the worst blow. One morning, Max didn't come when I whistled. I found him behind the barn, trembling, vomit flecked with green. The vet's words were grim. Industrial rodenticide, likely deliberate. Max survived, but the act was pure evil. They'd crossed a line. I called Frank Dawson, a brother from Vietnam who knew what it meant to fight. "They came for my dog," I said. "It's time to burn them down." Frank arrived at dawn, thermos in hand, eyes hard. My kitchen table became our war room. The USB, Vet bills, the forged letter, the threat. They think you'll quit, Frank said. They're wrong. 2 days later, we filed a lawsuit, illegal land seizure, harassment, fraud, harm to a minor and animal. We demanded an audit of Pine Hollow's finances and an injunction against their attacks. Margaret retaliated with flyers calling me a dangerous individual, using a distorted photo from a veterans event. Tommy's principal called, outraged, saying the school stood with us. I couldn't stay silent. When a Charlotte news anchor called, I agreed to an interview. On my porch, Max at my feet, I told the truth. This land's been mine for 50 years. You don't erase that with a map. Tommy's video was the turning point. Sitting under the oak, arm around Max, he spoke of fishing with me, Max chasing squirrels. This is our home, he said. It's not for sale. It went viral, racking up 200,000 views overnight. The community rallied. The courtroom was cold, but I wore my army blazer, my armor. Margaret and Edward strutted in with high-priced lawyers. Judge Larson, a no-nonsense woman, eyed them like she could smell their lies. Their team called it a boundary misunderstanding. Frank countered with the 1973 deed, aerial photos, and the HOA's fake map. Witnesses James Clark, the principal, the vet tore their story apart. James testified Margaret ordered him to falsify records. The final blow was her recorded voice. Bury him in paperwork until he sells or dies. The room went silent. Margaret's composure shattered. When I spoke, I looked at the jury. I've buried family here. Raised my son. Tommy's learning to ride his bike under my father's oak. That's a bloodline, not a property line. You don't steal that with a lie. Judge Larson's gavel fell like thunder. Pine Hollow was dissolved, its maps voided. They owed $250,000 in damages. Margaret and Edward faced criminal charges. Her law license was gone. It was over. Outside, Tommy held Max's leash, the dog's tail thumping. I smiled. We'd won. That spring, Tommy and I built a pine fence, mounting a sign. Harlan, EST 1973. Neighbors returned with pies and apologies. Sam brought Max's favorite treats. The land was quiet again, a hard-earned peace. What do you think? Have you faced injustice or fought for what's yours? Share your thoughts below, especially on how far you'd go to protect your home or confront cruelty. Let's hear your stand.